The mop bucket wheels squeaked as Sam Rodriguez pushed his cleaning cart down the empty corridor of Deck 7. Most people avoided this part of orbital station harmony after midnight. The lights here were dimmer to save power, and the air recyclers made strange humming sounds that spooked the day shift workers. But Sam liked the quiet. After 12 hours of aliens arguing in the main trading floors above, the peaceful silence felt like a gift. Sam had been cleaning these lower decks for 3 years now. He knew every scratched wall panel and loose floor grating. He could navigate the maintenance tunnels with his eyes closed and predict exactly which trash bins would be overflowing. Tonight felt different, though. Earlier, he had noticed security. Teams rushing through the upper levels, their faces tense and worried. Something big was happening, but nobody bothered to tell the cleaning crew about station emergencies. He dipped his mop in the soapy water and started working on a stubborn stain near the ventilation access. The cleaning solution smelled like artificial lemons, which always reminded him of his mother's kitchen back on Earth. She would have laughed at him now, cleaning floors on a space station millions of miles from home. But the pay was decent, and he sent most of it back to help his younger sister finish school. A soft crying sound echoed from somewhere nearby. Sam stopped mopping and listened carefully. There it was again, like a kitten in distress. He followed, the sound to a maintenance shaft entrance that had been left slightly open. The crying was definitely coming from inside. Sam grabbed his flashlight and squeezed through the narrow opening. The shaft was cramped and filled with pipes and electrical cables. He crawled forward carefully, following the pitiful sounds deeper into the maintenance system. His knees scraped against the metal flooring and dust made him want to sneeze. The crying grew louder. Sam turned a corner and his flashlight beam fell on something impossible. A small creature sat huddled against a junction box, no bigger than a house cat. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered like crystals, changing colors from blue to green to silver as it moved. Tiny wings were folded against its back, and its large golden eyes reflected his flashlight beam. The creature looked up at him and let out another heartbreaking cry. Sam had never seen anything like it in all his years on the station. He had cleaned up after hundreds of different alien species, but this little thing was completely new to him. It was clearly a baby of some kind, lost and scared and probably hungry. "Hey there, little guy," Sam said softly, the way he used to talk to stray cats in his neighborhood. "What are you doing down here all alone?" The creature stopped crying and tilted its head, studying Sam with those remarkable golden eyes. It made a small chirping sound, almost like a question. Sam slowly reached out his hand, palm up, letting the creature decide whether to trust him. After a moment, it stretched its neck forward and sniffed his fingers with a tiny nose. Its breath felt warm against his skin. "You're lost, aren't you?" Sam whispered. "Don't worry. I'll help you find your family." The creature made another chirping sound and took a cautious step toward him. Sam noticed it was shivering, either from cold or fear. The maintenance shafts were always chilly, and this little thing didn't look like it was built for rough conditions. Carefully, Sam scooped up the creature with both hands. It was surprisingly light, and its scales felt smooth and warm despite the shivering. The little thing curled up in his palms and looked up at him with what seemed like trust. "Come on," Sam said. "Let's get you somewhere safe and warm." He crawled back through the maintenance shaft with the creature cradled against his chest. Getting back to his cleaning cart took some careful maneuvering, but the little thing stayed calm the whole time. Once they were back in the corridor, Sam set up a makeshift bed in the bottom of his cart using clean towels from his supply compartment. The creature settled into the soft towels and chirped contentedly. Now that it was under better light, Sam could see just how beautiful it really was. Its scales caught the corridor lighting and threw tiny rainbows on the walls. Its wings, though small, had delicate patterns that reminded him of stained glass windows. Sam's stomach rumbled, reminding him it was time for his dinner break. He usually ate alone in the supply closet on Deck 8, but tonight he had company. He unwrapped his sandwich and broke off a small piece of the turkey and cheese. "Are you hungry?" he asked, offering the morsel to his new friend. The creature sniffed the food cautiously, then nibbled at it with tiny sharp teeth. Apparently it liked the taste because it made happy chirping sounds and looked at Sam hopefully for more. Sam shared half his sandwich with the little creature, watching in amazement as it ate delicately from his fingers. Whatever this thing was, it had intelligence in those golden eyes. It understood that Sam was trying to help, and it trusted him completely. As they shared the meal, Sam heard footsteps in the distance. A security patrol was making rounds, their boots echoing through the corridors. The creature's head popped up alertly, and Sam quickly covered it with a corner of the towel. "Stay quiet, little one," he whispered, "until I figure out where you belong." The security team passed by without stopping. They seemed to be in a hurry, talking in low, urgent voices about search patterns and missing targets. Sam caught fragments of their conversation about Code 7 protocols and diplomatic incidents, but nothing that made much sense to him. After they were gone, Sam carefully lifted the towel. The creature looked up at him and made a soft, trilling sound, almost like it was thanking him. It had finished eating and now seemed much more content. Its eyes were getting heavy, and it yawned with a mouth full of tiny white teeth. Sam watched as his new friend curled up in the towels and closed its eyes. Within minutes, it was fast asleep, its small body rising and falling peacefully. Soft, golden light seemed to pulse gently under its scales as it dreamed. Looking at this innocent little creature, Sam felt a protective instinct he had never experienced before. Whatever was happening on the upper decks, whatever had the security team so worried he would keep this little one safe until he could find its family. It was just a baby after all. Everyone deserved to be cared for when they were lost and afraid. Sam finished his cleaning rounds with extra care, making sure his cart moved smoothly so he wouldn't wake his sleeping passenger. Tomorrow he would start asking around quietly, trying to find out where this beautiful little creature belonged. But for tonight, he was content to be its guardian. He had no idea that his small act of kindness was about to change the fate of the entire galaxy. Sam's quarters were nothing special, just a small room with a bed, a desk, and a tiny food preparation area. He had tried to make it feel like home with a few pictures from Earth and a plastic plant that his sister had sent him as a joke. As he carefully transferred his sleeping friend from the cleaning cart to a nest of blankets on his floor, Sam realized his simple life was about to become much more complicated. The little creature stirred as Sam set it down, opened one golden eye, and made a soft, questioning chirp. When it saw Sam's face, it seemed to relax and settled back into the warm blankets. Soon it was purring, a sound like tiny bells ringing. Sam sat on his bed and watched the creature sleep. In better light, he could see even more details. The scales weren't just colorful, they actually seemed to glow with their own inner light. The tiny wings had intricate patterns that looked almost like writing in some unknown language. This was definitely not an ordinary animal. Over the next few days, Sam developed a routine. He would finish his cleaning shift, then hurry back to his quarters to check on his little friend. The creature, which he had started calling Spark because of the way its scales glowed, always seemed happy to see him. It would chirp and dance around his feet, clearly excited for feeding time and play. Feeding Spark became an adventure. The creature seemed to like most human food, especially anything with meat or cheese. Sam started saving scraps from the cafeteria, telling the kitchen staff he was feeding stray maintenance rats. They thought he was being kind to vermin, but they let him take leftovers anyway. Spark grew stronger and more playful each day. It learned to recognize Sam's footsteps in the corridor and would be waiting by the door when he arrived. During the day while Sam slept, Spark would curl up in the blanket nest and doze peacefully. But when Sam was awake, the little creature wanted to explore everything. Sam made toys out of cleaning supplies. Empty spray bottles became drums that Spark would tap with its tiny claws. Spare rags became blankets for elaborate nest-building games. A broken screwdriver handle became Spark's favorite thing to carry around, like a security blanket. The most amazing thing was how smart Spark seemed to be. It learned to open the food storage containers by watching Sam do it once. It figured out how to turn the lights on and off by jumping up to hit the switch. When Sam spoke to it, Spark would tilt its head and make different chirping sounds back, like it was trying to have a conversation. After a week, Sam decided to risk taking Spark with him on his night shift. The little creature was getting restless, being cooped up all day, and Sam worried about leaving it alone for so long. He made a comfortable hiding spot in his cleaning cart, covered with towels, where Spark could stay hidden but still see what was happening. Spark loved these nighttime adventures. It would peek out from its hiding spot and watch the corridors go by, its golden eyes bright with curiosity. Sometimes it would make soft, chirping sounds at interesting sights, and Sam would whisper back explanations of what they were seeing. "That's the water recycling plant," Sam would say as they passed the humming machinery. "It cleans all the water on the station so we can drink it," Spark would chirp thoughtfully, like it was filing away this information for later. But Sam was starting to notice that something big was happening on the upper levels of the station. During his shifts, he saw more security patrols than usual. Important-looking aliens in fancy uniforms were having urgent meetings in the conference rooms. Even the normally cheerful cafeteria workers seemed tense and worried. One night, as Sam was emptying trash bins near the diplomatic quarters, he overheard part of a conversation between two station officers. "The Dragon Empire's getting impatient," one of them was saying. "Commander Hayes is running out of time to find what they're looking for." "What happens if we don't find it?" the other officer asked. "According to the intelligence reports, they're prepared to take extreme measures. This isn't just some diplomatic request. This is personal for them." Sam tried to listen to more, but the officers moved away. He had heard rumors about the Dragon Empire before. They were supposed to be incredibly powerful and dangerous, with technology far beyond most other species. The idea that they were making demands on the station was frightening, but when Sam looked down at Spark, peacefully sleeping in the towel nest, he couldn't imagine what any of this had to do with his little friend. Spark was just a baby animal that had gotten lost, surely nothing to do with galactic politics. The next morning, Sam's supervisor, Lisa, pulled him aside before his shift ended. "Sam, I need to ask you something," she said, looking unusually serious. "Have you seen anything unusual during your rounds? Any strange animals or creatures?" Sam's heart jumped, but he tried to keep his expression neutral. "What kind of creatures?" "The station administration is looking for something that went missing. Something valuable. They're asking all the night shift workers to keep their eyes open." "Missing how?" Sam asked. Lisa shrugged. "Nobody tells us the details, but apparently it's important enough that they're searching every section of the station, even the maintenance areas." That night, Sam was extra careful during his rounds. He made sure Spark stayed well hidden in the cart, and he avoided the areas where security teams were conducting searches. But he could see that the search was getting more organized and thorough. They were checking storage rooms, maintenance shafts, even the garbage processing areas. Spark seemed to sense the tension. It stayed quieter than usual and kept looking up at Sam with worried golden eyes. When they got back to Sam's quarters, Spark climbed into Sam's lap and made soft, anxious chirping sounds. "Don't worry, little guy," Sam said, gently stroking the smooth scales. "I won't let anything happen to you." But privately, Sam was getting worried. Whatever was happening on the station, it was getting bigger and more serious every day. He had started researching different alien species on the station computer, trying to figure out what kind of creature Spark might be. But nothing in the databases looked like his little friend. The scales, the wings, the intelligence, the way Spark's body seemed to generate its own light. None of it matched any known species in the station records. Sam was beginning to wonder if Spark might be something much rarer and more important than he had thought. On his day off, Sam visited the station library and used the public computers to search for more information. He looked up dragon-like creatures and crystalline scales and bioluminescent animals. Most of the results were just fantasy stories or mythology from various worlds, but one search result made him pause. It was a brief mention in a xenobiology textbook about extremely rare draconic species that were sacred to certain advanced civilizations and never seen outside their home systems. The description mentioned crystalline scales and natural bioluminescence, but the text was heavily censored with most details marked as classified information. Sam stared at the screen, a cold feeling growing in his stomach. What if Spark wasn't just a lost pet? What if it was something much more important and dangerous? That evening, as Sam prepared for another night shift, he looked at Spark playing with a piece of string and wondered what he had gotten himself into. The little creature looked up at him and chirped happily, completely trusting and innocent. Whatever the truth was, Sam knew he couldn't abandon his friend now, but deep down he was starting to realize that keeping Spark safe might be much harder than he had imagined. The emergency announcement echoed through every corridor of Orbital Station Harmony at exactly 600 hours. Sam jerked awake from a deep sleep, his heart pounding as Commander Hayes' voice filled his small quarters. All station personnel, this is a Priority 1 announcement. Effective immediately, the station is under diplomatic lockdown. No ships may leave without express authorization. All civilian areas will be subject to mandatory security inspections. This is not a drill. Spark, who had been sleeping peacefully in his blanket nest, woke up with a startled chirp. The little creature's scales were flashing brighter than Sam had ever seen them, cycling rapidly through colors from deep blue to bright gold. It looked frightened and confused. Sam quickly turned on his wall screen to get more information. The news feeds were full of alarming reports. Massive ships had appeared at the edge of the system during the night. Not just any ships. These were Dragon Empire battlecruisers, each one larger than the station itself. The images showed sleek vessels with hulls that seemed to shimmer like scales, bristling with weapons that could turn entire planets into dust. The Dragon Empire has issued an ultimatum, the news reporter was saying, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. They demand the immediate return of what they call stolen property. Imperial representatives have refused to specify what they are looking for, but sources suggest it may be of immense value to their civilization. Sam felt his blood turn to ice. He looked down at Spark, who was now climbing into his lap and making worried chirping sounds. The little creature's golden eyes were wide with what looked like confusion and fear. Representative Calix of the Dragon Empire spoke briefly to station media. The reporter continued. He stated that the Empire's patience is not infinite, and that failure to return their property would be considered an act of war against all dragonkind. The screen showed a brief clip of the dragon representative. He was humanoid, but clearly not human, with scales covering his visible skin and eyes that glowed with inner fire. When he spoke, his voice carried undertones that made Sam's teeth ache just from hearing it through the speakers. What is ours will be returned, the representative had said. The guilty parties will face imperial justice. This is not negotiable. Sam turned off the screen with shaking hands. He looked at Spark, who was purring softly and rubbing against his chest, completely trusting and innocent. There was no way this beautiful little creature could be connected to the terrifying military force surrounding their station. But doubt was growing in Sam's mind. The timing was too convenient. Spark had appeared just as the crisis started. The searches, the security lockdown, the desperate urgency of the station administration, it all pointed to something incredibly important being missing. Sam tried to push these thoughts away as he got ready for his shift. The station was in emergency mode, which meant extra cleaning duties and longer hours. He would need to focus on his work and keep Spark safe until this whole situation resolved itself. But when Sam arrived at the cleaning supply depot, his supervisor, Lisa, looked like she hadn't slept in days. Sam, thank goodness you're here, she said, her hands shaking as she handed him his assignment tablet. They want every single maintenance area cleaned and inspected today. Every shaft, every storage room, every place something could be hidden. Hidden? Sam asked, trying to keep his voice casual. They're looking for something, Lisa said, lowering her voice. Something that belongs to the dragons. Word is if we don't find it soon, those battleships out there are going to start shooting. Sam felt sick to his stomach. What kind of something? Nobody knows for sure, but the rumors are getting wilder by the hour. Some people are saying it's a weapon, others think it might be some kind of treasure. There's even talk that it could be... Lisa paused and looked around nervously. That it could be something alive. The assignment tablet felt heavy in Sam's hands. His cleaning route today included all the areas where he usually brought Spark. There was no way he could take his friend with him while security teams were conducting intensive searches. I have to go, Sam said quickly. Long day ahead. Back in his quarters, Sam knelt down next to Spark's nest. The little creature looked up at him with those trusting golden eyes and chirped happily. Listen, little guy, Sam said softly. Today, you need to stay here, okay? It's not safe for you to come with me. Spark tilted its head and made a questioning sound. It had gotten used to their daily adventures together, and Sam could see disappointment in its expression. I'll be back tonight, Sam promised. Just stay hidden and don't make any noise if anyone comes to the door. But as Sam prepared to leave, he noticed something troubling. Spark wasn't moving around as much as usual. The little creature seemed tired and was breathing more heavily than normal. When Sam offered it some leftover food from the previous night, Spark only nibbled at it half-heartedly. Sam picked up Spark carefully and examined it more closely. The creature's scales didn't seem as bright as they usually were, and its body felt warmer than normal. Sam didn't know much about alien biology, but something was clearly wrong. Are you feeling sick, little one? Sam asked, gently stroking Spark's head. Spark made a weak chirping sound and curled up against Sam's chest. Its breathing was definitely labored, and Sam could feel its tiny heart beating too fast. Terror shot through Sam's mind. What if he had been feeding Spark the wrong foods? What if human food was actually poisonous to whatever species Spark belonged to? Sam realized he knew almost nothing about how to properly care for his friend. He had been guessing about everything: diet, temperature, exercise, medical needs. Sam spent the morning cleaning frantically while his mind raced with worry. Every few hours he would find an excuse to check on Spark, and each time the little creature seemed a bit worse. By afternoon, Spark was barely responsive, just lying in its nest with dull, half-closed eyes. The security searches were getting closer to Sam's quarters. He could hear inspection teams working their way through the residential areas, checking every room thoroughly. Soon, they would reach his section, and there would be nowhere for Spark to hide. As Sam worked, he overheard more conversations about the crisis. The Dragon Empire had given the station administration exactly 48 hours to return their property. Half that time had already passed. The battleships had moved closer and were now scanning the station with powerful sensors. They're looking for energy signatures, one technician told another. Something that gives off a specific type of radiation. The Dragons have some kind of tracking technology that can detect it from space. Sam's hands froze on his mop handle. Energy signatures, radiation. He thought about the way Spark's scales glowed with their own inner light, the way the little creature seemed to pulse with gentle luminescence when it slept. What if the Dragons weren't looking for a weapon or treasure? What if they were looking for Spark? The thought hit Sam like a physical blow. If Spark really did belong to the Dragon Empire, then keeping it hidden wasn't just about protecting a lost animal. It was about preventing a war that could destroy the station and everyone on it. But looking at Spark's condition, Sam realized he might not have a choice much longer. The little creature was getting sicker by the hour. Whatever was wrong with it, Sam didn't have the knowledge or resources to help. Spark needed medical attention, even if it meant revealing the secret Sam had been guarding. That evening, as security teams prepared to search the residential quarters, Sam made the hardest decision of his life. He carefully wrapped Spark in a clean towel and picked up his friend one last time. "I'm sorry, little guy," he whispered, "but I think it's time to find out who you really are." Spark opened its golden eyes and looked at Sam with what seemed like understanding. It made one soft chirping sound, almost like it was saying goodbye to their secret life together. Sam took a deep breath and walked toward the medical bay, carrying the most important secret in the galaxy in his arms, completely unaware that he was about to change everything. Dr. Foster's veterinary clinic occupied a small corner of the station's medical deck, tucked between the emergency surgery and the alien physiology research lab. Sam had never been there before, but he had heard other workers mention that she was the only doctor on the station who specialized in non-human creatures. If anyone could help Spark, it would be her. Sam pressed the door chime with his elbow, still cradling the weakening creature in his towel bundle. Spark had barely moved during the journey here, and its breathing had become even more labored. The golden glow from its scales was flickering like a dying light bulb. "We're closed for the emergency lockdown," came a tired voice from inside. "Unless this is life-threatening." "It is," Sam called back desperately. "Please, I have a sick animal that needs help." The door slid open to reveal a middle-aged woman with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Dr. Foster took one look at Sam's worried face and stepped aside to let him in. "What do we have here?" she asked, leading him to an examination table in the center of the small room. Sam carefully unwrapped Spark from the towel. The little creature lay still on the metal surface, its scales dim and its breathing shallow. Dr. Foster's eyes widened as she got her first clear look at the patient. "Where did you find this?" she asked quietly, her voice suddenly tense. "In a maintenance shaft about 2 weeks ago," Sam said. "It was lost and scared, so I've been taking care of it. But today it got sick and I don't know what to do." Dr. Foster was already pulling on examination gloves and reaching for her diagnostic equipment. But Sam noticed her hands were shaking, slightly as she worked. "What's wrong?" Sam asked. "Do you know what kind of animal this is?" Dr. Foster paused in her examination and looked at Sam with an expression he couldn't quite read. Fear, amazement, and something that might have been pity all mixed together. "Sam, is it?" she said, having read his name from his work uniform. "I need you to sit down and listen to me very carefully." Sam remained standing, his worry for Spark overriding everything else. "Can you help it or not?" "This creature," Dr. Foster said slowly, "is not just any animal. These scales, this bone structure, the bioluminescent organs, this is a dragon hatchling. A very young, very rare dragon." Sam felt confused. "A dragon? But dragons are just stories, aren't they?" "No, Sam. Dragons are real and they're among the most powerful species in the known galaxy. They're incredibly intelligent, incredibly long-lived, and incredibly protective of their young." Dr. Foster gently lifted one of Spark's tiny wings to examine it more closely. "This particular hatchling appears to be of royal bloodline based on the scale patterns and coloration." The words hit Sam like a physical blow. "Royal bloodline?" Dr. Foster nodded grimly. "Sam, do you know what's been happening on this station for the past 2 weeks? The lockdown, the searches, the Dragon Empire battleships surrounding us?" Sam's legs suddenly felt weak. He sank into a chair as the pieces fell into place. "They're looking for Spark?" "They're looking for this hatchling, yes. And based on the genetic markers I'm seeing here, this isn't just any royal dragon." Dr. Foster's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Sam, I think you've been caring for Emperor Draconius's heir." The room seemed to spin around Sam. Emperor Draconius. Even he had heard that name. The ruler of the Dragon Empire, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Legends said he could destroy entire star systems with his breath and that his word was absolute law across thousands of worlds. "That's impossible," Sam said weakly. "This is just a baby. A lost baby that needed help." "A lost baby prince," Dr. Foster corrected. "The Emperor brought his heir to the station for secret diplomatic negotiations. Something went wrong, the hatchling got lost, and now the entire Dragon Empire thinks we've kidnapped their future ruler." Spark made a weak chirping sound and both humans looked down at the examination table. The little creature's eyes opened halfway and it looked directly at Sam, making the same trusting sound it had made every day for 2 weeks. "The poor thing is malnourished," Dr. Foster said, returning to her medical examination. "Dragons have very specific dietary requirements, especially at this age. Human food isn't toxic to them, but it lacks essential nutrients they need for proper development." Sam watched as Dr. Foster prepared a small injection of what looked like liquid starlight. The substance glowed with the same golden color as Spark's scales. "This is a synthetic nutrient supplement," she explained as she administered the injection. "It should stabilize the hatchling's condition, but it needs proper dragon food and care from here on out." Almost immediately, Spark's breathing became easier and some of the glow returned to its scales. The little creature chirped more strongly and tried to lift its head. "There we go," Dr. Foster murmured. Feeling better already, but even as relief flooded through Sam at seeing Spark improve, the weight of the situation was crushing down on him. He had been harboring the most important missing person in the galaxy. The Dragon Empire had brought warships to find their prince, and Sam had been feeding him turkey sandwiches and letting him sleep in cleaning towels. What happens now? Sam asked, dreading the answer. Dr. Foster was already reaching for her communication device. Now I have to report this to station security. Sam, you need to understand, this is the biggest diplomatic crisis this station has ever faced. The Emperor's heir has been missing for 2 weeks. For all they know, he could be dead. But I took good care of him, Sam protested. I never hurt him. I was trying to help. I know, Dr. Foster said gently, but the Dragon Empire doesn't know that. All they know is that their prince disappeared on this station, and every day he's been missing is another day they've assumed the worst. The door chimed, and Dr. Foster's expression grew grave. She had sent the emergency notification. Through the small window, Sam could see station security officers approaching, along with several figures in the formal uniforms of diplomatic personnel. Spark, seemingly revived by the medical treatment, chirped and struggled to its feet on the examination table. It looked around at all the strangers with wide golden eyes, then spotted Sam and immediately began trying to climb toward him. "Daddy," it chirped, and Sam realized with shock that Spark was trying to talk, forming actual words for the first time. "Daddy scared." The simple words broke Sam's heart. In the 2 weeks they had been together, Spark had come to see him as a parent figure. And now Sam was about to lose his little friend to a political situation he barely understood. "It's okay, Spark," Sam whispered, gently picking up the hatchling one last time. "Everything's going to be okay." But as the security team entered the clinic with grim faces and restraint devices, Sam wondered if anything would ever be okay again. He was holding a dragon prince in his arms, and somewhere out there among the stars, the most powerful emperor in the galaxy was waiting to learn what had happened to his son. The main docking bay of Orbital Station Harmony had been cleared of everything except security personnel and diplomatic officials. Sam stood in the center of the vast space, flanked by guards who looked almost as nervous as he felt. In his arms, Spark chirped softly and nuzzled against his chest, completely unaware of the historic moment about to unfold. Commander Hayes paced back and forth near the main airlock, checking her communication device every few seconds. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone knew that the next few minutes would determine whether the station survived or became space dust. "Dragon Empire shuttle requesting permission to dock," came the voice from traffic control. "Permission granted," Commander Hayes replied, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. "All personnel remember the protocols, show proper respect but maintain dignity. We are representing humanity today." Sam felt a cold knot in his stomach. He had asked Commander Hayes what would happen to him, but she had only said that his fate was now in the hands of Emperor Draconius himself. Given what Sam had learned about dragon culture in the past few hours, this was not necessarily good news. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. What emerged first was not a person, but a presence that made everyone in the docking bay instinctively step backward. The air itself seemed to shimmer with heat and power as Emperor Draconius entered the station. Sam had expected the Emperor to be large, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality. Draconius was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. His humanoid form stood nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that looked like polished obsidian shot through with veins of gold. His eyes were the same golden color as Spark's, but they held the weight of centuries and the power to reshape worlds. When the Emperor moved, his footsteps rang against the metal decking like hammer blows. The very air around him seemed to vibrate, with barely contained energy. Sam understood now why entire star systems bowed before the Dragon Empire. This was not just a ruler. This was a force of nature wearing the shape of a man. Behind the Emperor came his retinue of advisors and guards, all of them radiating the same otherworldly presence but diminished next to their lord. They spread out in a protective formation, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. Draconius stopped 10 feet away from Sam and studied him with those burning golden eyes. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Sam could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then Spark chirped happily and struggled in Sam's arms, trying to reach toward the Emperor. The little hatchling made excited trilling sounds and spread its tiny wings as far as they would go. "Papa," Spark said clearly, its voice filled with joy. "Papa, home." The change in Emperor Draconius was immediate and startling. The terrifying presence softened, and something that might have been relief flickered across his inhuman features. He took a step forward, and his voice, when he spoke, carried harmonics that resonated in Sam's bones. "My son," the Emperor said, and the words held depths of emotion that Sam had never heard before. "We feared you were lost forever." Spark chirped again and reached out with its tiny claws toward its father. But instead of immediately taking his air, Draconius continued to study Sam with those penetrating eyes. "You are the human who has cared." "For my son," the Emperor said. It was not a question. Sam's mouth was dry as sand, but he managed to speak. "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty. I found him lost and scared in a maintenance shaft. I just wanted to help. For 2 weeks, you sheltered and fed and protected the heir to the Dragon Empire," Draconius continued. "Yet you knew nothing of his identity or value." "I knew he was somebody's baby," Sam said, surprised by his own boldness. That was enough. Several of the Emperor's advisors exchanged glances at Sam's informal tone, but Draconius himself seemed intrigued rather than offended. "You risked your own safety to bring him for medical care when he became ill," the Emperor said, "even knowing that revealing his presence would likely mean your death." Sam looked down at Spark, who was still reaching toward his father but seemed content to stay in Sam's arms for now. "I couldn't let him suffer. He's just a child." "Just a child," Draconius repeated thoughtfully. "Yes, that is how you saw him. Not as a prince, not as a political asset, not as a bargaining chip, simply as a lost child who needed care." The Emperor took another step closer. His presence was still overwhelming, but Sam no longer felt like he was about to be incinerated on the spot. "My son has learned to speak during his time with you," Draconius observed. "His first words were not in the ancient dragon tongue, but in your human language. He calls you Daddy." Sam felt heat rising in his cheeks. "I'm sorry about that. I never told him to." "Do not apologize," the Emperor said, and there was something that might have been amusement in his voice. "It tells me everything I need to know about how you treated him." Draconius extended his hands toward his son. Spark chirped with delight and finally launched himself from Sam's arms into his father's embrace. The Emperor's terrifying expression melted into something tender and protective as he cradled the small hatchling against his chest. "My little star," Draconius murmured, in a language that sounded like music and thunder combined. "We have missed you so much." But after a moment, Spark began chirping in distress and reaching back toward Sam. The hatchling had bonded with his human caretaker and didn't understand why they were suddenly separated. "Daddy," Spark called plaintively. "Want Daddy too?" Emperor Draconius looked from his son to Sam and back again. Something passed across his features: calculation, understanding, and finally decision. "Human," the Emperor said formally, "you have shown kindness to my heir without thought of reward. You have risked yourself for his welfare without knowing his importance. You have earned the gratitude of the Dragon Empire." Sam didn't know what to say to that, so he remained silent. "More than this," Draconius continued, "you have earned my personal respect. My son has chosen you as his second father, and dragons do not choose such bonds lightly." The Emperor reached into his robes and withdrew a small crystalline device that pulsed with the same golden light as dragon scales. He held it out to Sam. "This is a communication crystal, attuned to the Imperial frequency. My son will wish to speak with his human father as he grows, and the Dragon Empire will remember that humanity showed mercy to our prince when he was helpless." Sam accepted the crystal with trembling hands. It felt warm and seemed to pulse gently against his palm. "Thank you," Sam said simply. Can I visit him sometime?" For the first time, Emperor Draconius smiled. It transformed his entire face, making him seem less like a force of nature and more like a father grateful for his child's safety. "You may visit whenever you wish," the Emperor said. "You will always be welcome in our realm. My son will need his human daddy as he learns to be a prince." Spark chirped happily and clapped his tiny claws together. He had both his fathers now, and his small world was complete once again. 3 months later, Sam was back to his normal routine of cleaning the lower decks of Orbital Station Harmony. But now his humble quarters contained gifts from across the galaxy. Art, books, foods, and treasures sent by grateful Dragon Empire citizens who had heard the story of the human janitor who saved their prince. More importantly, the communication. Crystal on his desk glowed softly every evening as Spark called to tell his human daddy about his lessons and adventures in the Dragon homeland. The little prince was growing rapidly, learning to fly and breathe fire and speak the ancient dragon languages. But he still remembered his first words, and he still called Sam Daddy in their private conversations. Sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the simplest act of kindness, and sometimes a janitor's mop bucket becomes the starting point for friendships that span the stars.